aging.
Changes that you see, the systematic changes, biological changes that you see happening because of hormones, and that might not exactly be the same
when we're aging. For men, at the age of 30 years, every man starts to lose 1% of the testosterone, start experiencing. But you see, with women, we really know well about the
signs and what we see in men as we see menopause
of testosterone level. But you see, men are still give birth as compared to women. Men, that's why my 19-year-old fan, women, their reproductive lifestyle.
Thank you very much. So speaking about range for when women start to experience menopause and men start to experience menopause,
I'm going to give you like an average. There is an exception to all this. Most of the time a woman starts experiencing, or the ovary stops producing egg at the age of 50-51. But there's a process. This changes depends on lifestyle. But most men, maybe like say 50 years old, they start experiencing some of these changes. But for men, the change that they experience.
Alright, so we're going to move on with this conversation, but in case you're just joining us, this is Health Plus here on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're having a conversation. Maybe as a woman you want to talk about menopause. There are many misconceptions and myths about menopause that you would like to hear a professional maybe debunk or educate you on. Please dial out to signs and symptoms. A lot of changes happen, physical changes, hormonal changes, and this is me extracting from the definition you gave earlier. Maybe even behavioral and social changes that happen as a result of the signs and the symptoms that we see these women experiencing. So let's shed more light on some of the physical, maybe behavioral or social changes that we start to notice in women that are going through the period of menopause.
Okay. For men, as I said earlier on, the most important change that they experience at the initial stage is loss of libido. But for women, as you said earlier, it affects the physical characteristics, it affects their mind, it affects so many things. There are more than 60 signs and symptoms, but the mostly seen or experienced at the initial stages are irregular periods. You have vaginal dryness, hot flashes, night sweats, chills. They have sleep problem, they have mood changes, they have weight gain, they have slowed metabolism. Sometimes that urinary tract is affected. It's a decrease in estrogen affects every part of a woman's body, every part, and that's why you have more than 60 signs and symptoms.
How about in men? Aside from the decrease in libido, are there any other physical maybe characteristics that we can use to decipher that okay, this man is going through a period of andropause, or it's just mostly the decrease in libido?
Tiredness.
Okay.
They also have mood swings.
Okay.
They also have sometimes some of them have low appetite.
Okay.
They have body mass decrease. And then at this stage, some men start developing breast.
Oh, okay.
And then you have enlargement of the stomach.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that has something to do with lifestyle. When we get there, we'll see how these lifestyle has an effect on how they respond to this decrease in testosterone level. So let's talk about the stages where it somehow you were about to speak about it while you were talking about menopause in women. So now let's break it down to the stages of menopause. You already mentioned perimenopause, which is like the primary stage of menopause. So talk to us about the stages and talk to us about how the symptoms start to develop in the different stages of menopause.
Okay, I said earlier that a woman's body starts to change at 30, 39, but there are exceptions to every rule. A woman's life starts changing at the age of 30, let's say 38, 39 and above. This little changes, maybe the first thing most of the time that you see is a regular monthly cycle. If your cycle normally goes for 5 days, it starts to dwindle. It starts going from 5 days to 4 days to 3 days, 1 day, and this can take a period of 10 years.
Just to be certain, you're talking specifically about the perimenopause phase.
We're talking about perimenopause phase,
okay.
And this can take as long as 10 years.
Okay.
And at this stage, some women experience brain fog. They can't think well.
Oh.
Some women start forgetting things, mixing up names of the children. Then some of them So many things, forgetfulness. Then you have low self-esteem. You have mood changes. Then you have inability to sleep. All this actually happen during perimenopause. But I said earlier on that the period dwindles. But you see, to every rule there's an exception. I keep saying that. In some women, you have the period, instead of it reducing, it starts coming up 2-3 times in a month. And then you see it, and the lady starts feeling very dizzy, anemia, and she just cannot handle it. If you're out there and you're one of those women going through this, because this can be very, very sensitive and it can be very difficult to handle, please see your gynecologist and speak to your gynecologist that you're seeing your period 2 or 3 times in a month. Then your gynecologist will actually advise you on what to do. So the perimenopause stage can actually take as long as 10 years. To some people, it just takes 2-3 years. All this time interval actually depends on your lifestyle. Then after the perimenopause, we'll now talk about the menopause. When we talk about menopause, it means 12 months without your blood flow. 12 months without blood flow, that takes us to menopause. Then the stages after menopause, we'll now talk about post-menopause. So a woman actually goes through these 3 stages, but you see the timing differs. It's taking me like 10 years. I'm 53 and I'm still seeing my period. But maybe once in 6 months. But because it's not a consistent 12 months, I'm not yet in menopause. But you see, we mix this perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. We mix it up.
Well, thank you very much. So you've heard it. There's the perimenopause stage, there's the menopause stage, and then there's postmenopause. So perimenopause, there's the possibility that you would see your period. It might be irregular. There's some of the symptoms that you've explained, maybe brain fog, insomnia. They may start to, discomfort basically. And then there's menopause in itself. That means that if you have gone 12 months, well, roughly a year without seeing your period, then you are in menopause. And then there's postmenopause. That is after you have not seen your period for a year. The stages that follow that is the post-menopause. Please be reminded once again that you can call and speak to us, especially now that you've heard about the signs, the symptoms, and then you can liken this to some of the signs and the symptoms that you have been experiencing. So if you have questions, you've been experiencing difficulties, maybe you're one of those who happen to be over bleeding, you've become almost become anemic because you're bleeding too much, which is like you said, an anomaly of some kind, and you want to get more clarity on that situation, please call 0913 6000 410. The WhatsApp number is 0913 6000 430. So let's talk about how long women experience menopause for, like the 3 stages. The perimenopause, like you said, it can last 10 years for perimenopause, the perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. How long do you think this goes on for? Is there ever a point where all these symptoms just stop happening and that I'm out of the bushes, I'm out of the works, I've gone through the stage of menopause? Or is this something that she has to deal with over and over again pretty much till the end of her life?
I'll talk to you from based on experience now. Sincerely, there's no age limit.
Okay.
There's no age limit. And then there's a thin line between perimenopause and menopause. And then the signs and symptoms of menopause are aggravated during menopause. Then for postmenopause, there's a thin line between menopause and postmenopause. Most people, you find yourself in menopause at the age of 51. That's the exact time that the period stops. Once that period stops completely, you find yourself in postmenopause. So there's a thin line between the 3 of them. So for postmenopause, I've seen women at 65, 68 still struggling with signs and symptoms of perimenopause or menopause. So you decide and determine how long you want the signs and symptoms to stop. Once we start talking about life changes, these will determine and
how severe the symptoms are. Okay, so let's talk about diagnosis, because initially when we started talking about this, a lot of women are not very educated, and a conversation we had before we came on air, where you gave an illustration of people who thought that they were under attack for some reason. The ignorance makes them think that this signs and symptoms of menopause that they are facing is maybe they're being attacked, or maybe they food poisoning and what have you, just a misconception about menopause. So So, for a woman who's experiencing this, is there a need to get a proper medical diagnosis, or this is something that you figure out by yourself as it goes on? And if it is a medical process to determine if a woman is, approaching menopause, or if she's already in perimenopause, what is the diagnosis process like?
Okay, medically, once you start having issues at that late 30s, in Nigeria, in our country, we don't go to hospitals. Once you see that your period has started to dwindle, that tells you that your body system is going through some changes. Once you go to your doctor probably tells you to carry out some test, blood test. Basically, once your doctor do that blood test, he should be able to tell you that this is what is happening to you. But most of the time in our environment, when they go to hospitals, doctors don't have time. They just look at your signs and symptoms, those feverish conditions, you are not able to eat. The physical signs and symptoms are very, very similar to that of malaria and typhoid. So what do? They start to treat them for malaria and typhoid. And most of the time, our women get to treat malaria and typhoid every month. So the thought of you not seeing your period in menopause stage does not even come to your mind. And that is why we're talking about menopause. Every woman needs to get this knowledge so that when your body system starts to change, you don't start running from one hospital to another.
All right, so that's it. If you're starting to experience the signs and the symptoms of menopause, maybe insomnia, you're getting hot flashes, you're sweating, you're unable to eat, you're just in general discomfort, your period is irregular, or maybe, like we said, you're bleeding too much, and then you've been to the health center and you're being treated for something else, you might want to go back again and properly present your signs and symptoms, and maybe even insist that they check if you are going through a period of menopause. Sometimes you can also be of help to the medical practitioner, point them in the right direction, because nobody knows how you're feeling better than you. So you heard it all. Again, we're still going to tell you that this is an open conversation. This is a conversation that is not just between myself and the doctor here. You can definitely call in and tell us what you're going through, tell us your experience, so that we can also point you in the best best direction to the best of our ability. 0913 6000 410. So let's talk about the management, because obviously you can't treat this. There's really no treating natural occurrences, but what you can do is manage the situation, maybe treat the symptoms, but the condition of menopause in itself, the management process, what is that like? The management of menopause, what is the process like?
I think the first thing I should let people out there know is that there's no cure for menopause, but can be managed through dieting and exercise.
There's no, I'm sorry, is there no medication?
There's supplements that you can take, so many supplements. But you see, most of the supplements, the ones that really work, are those supplements that boost the estrogen formulation in the estrogen secretion in the body system. These are supplements that are very, very effective. And also,
hold on a second, please. Let's take this phone call before we proceed. Hello, good morning to you. The volume on your radio, please. Hello. Please try to make it back. We lost that call. Please go ahead.
Oh, we're talking about management.
Yes.
We're talking about lifestyle changes
the
and
use of
exercises,
supplements,
and then the use of supplements. It's not every supplement that helps. Supplements that help to secrete or balance hormones in the system are the ones that are very, very effective. So you can talk to your pharmacist or speak with your medical doctor. They will help you out. The natural diets. Change your diets, reduce carbohydrate intakes. You see, when you take carbohydrate, it's been converted to sugar. Sugar has been found to increase or make hot flashes worse. So high intake of sugar actually makes the signs and symptoms of menopause worse and unmanageable. Then we can take some of the following foods: grains, leafy vegetables, isoflavones. Example of isoflavones are soya beans, very effective. You have nuts, you have apples. Stay away from processed foods. You can take cranberry, foods rich in vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin E. Then you have cayenne pepper, has been found to be very, very effective in menopause management. You have chilies, peppers generally, then avocado is a fatty fruit which helps in balancing hormones. Then you have yogurt and probiotics. All these have been found to be very, very effective in menopause management.
All right, so I think that takes us to the issue of lifestyle, because diet is pretty much a part of your lifestyle. So are there certain lifestyle changes that you would expect a woman going through menopause to adopt, and also lifestyle that should I say a lifestyle pattern that a woman has probably been used to, and the effect it would have on the severity of the symptoms when these symptoms come? I want you to speak to us about that.
Okay, if you're out there, you're within the menopause age and you smoke, I will advise you right now to stop smoking or reduce the number of cigarettes that you take. Alcohol too has been found to be very, very
There's a catalyst to
yes,
it.
it's very dangerous to human.
Let's hold on a second and take this call. Hello. Good morning to you. Alright, I really don't know what's going on with the lines, but please, you can still send WhatsApp messages to 0913-6000-430. If you're unable to connect via the phones, I'll be more than happy to take your messages. So please go ahead. Smoking, alcohol consumption, and how it makes the symptoms or the signs worse.
Okay, we're talking about exercise. You can do 1 to 2 hours walk every day. You can go to the gym. Then carrying weight also helps the body mass, and it also helps to stabilize hormones. You can engage in intermittent fasting. Too much eating right now, your system, your metabolism, your metabolic rate has reduced. So you don't have to.
Please. My apologies. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Manuel speaking from Ikeja.
All right, welcome, Emmanuel. Do you have questions?
I want doctor to explain libido.
Emmanuel, it's very difficult to hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
I want more explanation on libido.
On what? The libido.
Yeah.
All right. Listen via your radio. Anyways, let's finish what you were talking about before we speak about that intermittent fasting.
You see, because the metabolic rate has reduced, at this stage you can't afford to be eating everything or eating 4 or 5 times a day. Eating too much will cause a lot of diseases to your body. So I'll advise you to engage in intermittent fasting. What do I mean by intermittent fasting? You don't eat after 6, and in the morning you eat probably by 12. So your body system is fasting between 6 and 12 in the afternoon. So this actually helps to make your body work better.
Alright, so management, your diet is important, exercising is important, and some of the things that we've been advised to consume, or women who are going through the phase of menopause, yogurt, avocado, there's some probiotics, chili pepper, basically cayenne pepper as well, is believed to help you, manage the signs and symptoms of menopause, amongst other things. Whilst we're trying to summarize the entire conversation before we end, we will run through everything, the signs, the symptoms, and also the management process. So let's talk about how the public can actually support women that are going through menopause, because dealing with the symptoms can be very tedious, because there are lots of women who still have to go to work, they still have to manage their families, they still have to manage their personal lives, and then they're having brain fog, they're forgetting things. Like you said, some of them start to forget the names of their children, of their family members. They're somewhat aggressive in some women, because of the behavioral changes, maybe because of the dwindling hormone production in their body. Somebody who is definitely overbleeding would be cranky and does not want to socialize. And then you've also spoken about weight gain, and I know how people, especially in this part of the world, react to people's bodies, especially women bodies. We see women being body shamed, and when you're being body shamed, when people talk about how your body is, you're too big, you're too skinny, it affects your self-esteem. So how can the public help women that are dealing with menopause, and how can we go about educating the public that this woman is going through a biological change that is not only affecting her physically but emotionally but psychologically, and we have to be accommodating of these changes that they're going through?
Okay. Some 10 years ago, when I was going through this same menopause, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't have any hand to hold, nobody to talk to. So the period was very, very painful for me. So, I'm still going through it. I started a group called the Meno Club, and on that Meno Club we have over 2,000 people there. We talk about menopause, we share life experiences, so it's one of the groups. There are many people out there that are also talking about it. It's one of the very few groups that can help women, but if you're out there, you need to belong to one of these groups, you can decide to join the Meno Club.
All right. So one of the callers actually said that he would like more explanation on the libido reduction in men when they start to go through andropause as a result of a reduction in testosterone production in these men. So if you would be willing to create some more enlightenment regarding libido reduction, what does it mean? How long do they experience this for, and do they ever get to a point where their libido can be enhanced? Is there a process, just like with men eating certain food? Is there a process for men as well? But before you address that, please let's take this phone call. Hello, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning. This is Casey calling. Presently now at there is no problem going on.
All right. We would address that. Ileko, right?
Yes, from super Ileko to Yanopanga, there is no problem going on here now. Presently now I look myself with a particular company.
All right. Thank you very much for the report. All right. We'll get more information. Thank you so very much for calling.
All right, thank you.
Yes. All right. Yes. Let's go on with the answer that you were going to provide regarding men and how they can help themselves.
Right now, there's so many things going on, physically, environmentally, that affects the testosterone or libido in men. And then because of the mental state, this can also affect the libido in men negatively. And one of the things that has been found to be very effective is engaging in exercise. I will discourage men from using all the so-called stimulants. I would discourage you from doing those things. You can speak to your pharmacist, your closest pharmacist on this. Engage yourself in a lot of exercise. It helps to boost your testosterone. And then fruits. Let me just give you ginger has been found to be very, very effective.
I'm going to have to interrupt you again. My apologies. All right, please go ahead. I'm trying to take as many contributions as possible. All right, ginger, go ahead.
Ginger has been very, very found to help in hormonal balance, also for testosterone. Just give us a something that we can be taking every morning to help balance either testosterone or estrogen. You can make this drink. It's very easy to make. Blend ginger, turmeric, clove oil, and few zobo leaves. Blend everything together. Put them in hot water. Sieve and add a spoonful of honey. These fruits have been found to naturally increase hormonal balance both in testosterone and estrogen. Rather than taking continual Viagra, all those stimulants, spend time to drink this drink in the morning and in the evening. It will help you psychologically and mentally.
All right. So are there some sort of diseases that women or men are predisposed to when they're going through menopause? Because sometimes when you're going through a condition, it opens you up to other conditions. I remember talking about multiple sclerosis one time with a medical expert, and he says that when you have multiple sclerosis, you're open to diabetes. You're not susceptible to certain diseases. So is this the case for menopause and andropause in men alike? Are there certain conditions that they're likely to have the minute they start to go through the process of menopause?
During this stage of menopause, once the estrogen level starts going down, it affects the bone and it causes thinning of the bone, and that can lead to osteoporosis. Low estrogen level can affect the heart, and that can cause cardiac effects. Example, it can make your blood pressure to go up. Insomnia is also another complication. When it starts affecting, if that is not controlled, it can give rise to psychosis.
Yeah, of course.
Then there's so many. As I said earlier on, it affects every organ. When it affects these organs and they are not managed immediately or well managed, it leads to complications.
All right. So you've heard from the doctor. Like again, if you're going, Pharmacist, yes. You've heard from the pharmacist. You've heard some of the things that would most likely happen to people who are going through the period of menopause. Psychosis, for example, and that is because you're not getting enough sleep. And many times medical experts have told us that if you deprive yourself of sleep, you might start to experience signs and symptoms like you're drunk. Because I remember that being a conversation. Depriving yourself of sleep, you start to act, your body believes that you're drunk. And then, you start to, some even start to hallucinate at the end of the day. So you can see that menopause can open you up to many different things: osteoporosis, brittle bones, and you know how expensive replacement surgery is. Hip replacement surgery, for example, how very expensive it is. So that's why I had a conversation about public support for people who are going through menopause. We should not be very dismissive of this condition. This belief that many other women in the past have gone through menopause, and so why does yours have to be so different? Again, the lifestyle that this woman or this man had led in the past probably makes their symptoms more severe. It makes it worse. Maybe they even have an underlying medical condition, and then coupled with the symptoms or the signs, or well, let's focus on symptoms of menopause, everything together just makes them, makes it difficult for them to go through that particular process. So let me ask this question. It might be a bit, I might be reaching, but then has there been any period where menopause becomes very detrimental to the point where it can lead to death? Have you ever seen scenarios like that where a woman dies from going through a very severe episode of maybe some of the symptoms that are attributed to menopause?
Well, I have not seen, but it's very, very possible. But you see, once the signs and symptoms are not well treated, they get complicated. A woman can easily die from that complications, but nobody will tell you that she died from menopause because her period stopped. No, but she probably, those low estrogen level leads to those signs and symptoms. When those signs and symptoms are not properly managed, they lead to complication. When those complications are not managed, it can lead to death.
All right, so I want us to double back to the social behavior once again. Is it advisable that women who are going through menopause maybe take time to themselves to understand what's going on with them, or you would advise that they socialize more? Because sometimes socializing more might not be helpful for certain people, because they're somewhat aggressive now. They don't know how to be recipient of people trying to show them care, and people just think they come off as rude. They don't know that this is them reacting to what they're going through. So is it advisable to, as a woman, not necessarily be alone, maybe just be with your friends and family, or would you advise that they socialize more to help them deal with that particular situation?
Okay, as I said earlier on, every woman going through menopause out there, please, you can't walk this walking on. Join a group so that you can learn more of these things. When you're going through this, you have another woman going through the similar thing. One of the signs and symptoms of this social withdrawal, social, what do I call it now?
The social withdrawal. They
social
don't want
withdrawal.
To be around
it
people.
affects your self-esteem, your stomach, you get fat, you've put on weight in those places, you don't look beautiful as usual, people start complaining. At this stage, you need to talk to yourself and agree with yourself. Your body system is changing, and with this change in your system, you can manage these things. So belong to a group of women that are going through similar things with you, that will keep encouraging you that this is just a stage, it will pass. Because you're in menopause does not mean that your life has to stop. We have seen so many women going through this menopause and they're doing fantastic things. So don't look down on yourself. Don't keep to yourself. If you keep too much to yourself, it can lead to psychosis, and then you might need talk therapy, and it's very difficult to bring you out from the stage. I have been through it, so I know what it is. Go out there, talk to people that are going through similar things, that they can help you. Please join the Meno Club.
Alrighty, I was going to ask you to speak a little bit about the Meno Club. Is this something that, do you go around talking to women? Do you have to come somewhere? Is it like a support group where everybody sits down, talk about their experience? Or do you go about sensitizing people? Do you also talk to people who are not necessarily going through menopause so that they are better prepared for when menopause comes?
People don't get prepared for menopause. We prepare for marriage, we prepare for childbirth, we prepare for so many things, but we don't get prepared for menopause. And that's why people at this age bracket, they fall here easily. So the Meno Club is developed for people that believe that aging is inevitable. One day I will get there. So it helps us to prepare ourselves for this stage. The age bracket here is ladies, men from 38 and above. And right now we have over 2,000 people in the Meno Club. We get to talk about everything about menopause. We don't shy away from anything. And we also talk about some of the supplements that you can take. So if you want to join the Meno Club, you can type menopause or Meno Club to 080.
No, we can actually take phone number. Yes, we can take maybe they just type it onto the search engine, and I believe it will lead them to your page where they can get more information. Yes, thank you very much. All right then, now you've heard it. This is where we would have to draw the curtains for the conversation on menopause. We told you what menopause is. We've told you basically ovarian follicular function, when it starts to lose its function, when you're no longer producing your ovaries anymore. Cessation of monthly flow by 6 months. You're already in the phase of menopause. We've told you that there are stages to this. The perimenopause stage, that is before you start to experience menopause. 39 years old and what have you start to experience the signs and symptoms. Irregular period. There's still a possibility that you might get pregnant. Yes, you still have your period, but it's just irregular, and then that ushers you into the period of menopause. And then at that time, that's 12 months you haven't seen your period, and then after that stage, you're into the stage of post-menopause. And the signs and symptoms varies depending on the kind of lifestyle that have been led by these women. Also, we've told you that this is not just something that happens with women. Men go through a similar phase where there's a reduction in their testosterone production, and we've told you that medically is called the period of andropause. The management of this condition, basically your diet, your exercising, be mobile, move around so that your body can adjust to these changes. Go on ahead and eat properly. We've told you yogurt, avocado, peppers, cayenne pepper, chili pepper, just to mention a few. Improve your diet, shy away from processed food as a woman. And also, we've spoken to the public, be very accommodating of women or men going through menopause. They go through a lot of changes. It can be physical, it can be behavioral, it can be social, just to mention a few. We've told you that it can go as far as them having memory glitches, memory gaps. They have brain fog, they're unable to eat, they're unable to sleep, and you know how very uncomfortable, the kind of discomfort that a person like that will be going through. So understanding these phases, do the best you can not to talk down on people. If you realize that, oh, this person is getting too fat, or this person is bloating, or this person is losing weight, whatever the situation might be, do not talk down on people, as you do not understand that they are going through a phase, the phase of menopause, that, must I emphasize, is inevitable. It must happen. So let's not shame people, let's not talk down on people who are going through difficult phases as this one. My name is Sage Babalola. Thank you very much, Mosunmola, Dosunmu, for being here. We appreciate you for the knowledge that you have impacted on people this morning, and hopefully we get to talk to you some other time. Maybe you could, obviously there's always research coming out, new things being developed, and if this information comes out, it would be nice to have you here to talk to us about it. Maybe we can round this off by taking this phone call. Hello, the volume on your radio, please. Hello. Turn down the volume on your radio. Just turn it down. Hello. What you're going to do is you can follow Mainland FM on social media. Just send us a DM and we'll provide you with all the information that you need. Alright? Mainland 98.3. Mainland 98.3. That's our social media. Just send us a message and we'll give you all the information that you need. Alright, thank you very much. Thank you for calling. Alright, thank you, Mosunmola Dosunmu. It was a pleasure to have you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Sage.
Of course. Well, that's it for Help Plus on 98.3 Mainland FM. My name is Sage. This is the sound of Lagos. Enjoy the rest of the shows coming your way.